It was a month after Maria was admitted to the hospital that Richard came to visit. Standing in front of Maria, who was asleep, he turned to me and said without hesitation, "Divorce the wife who doesn't do housework. Sold the condo. Got the insurance money, and I'm gonna marry my mistress." Richard threw the signed divorce papers at me. "I'm gonna go buy some coffee." I was so shocked and dizzy with anger that I couldn't respond, and Richard left the hospital room. As soon as the door closed, I heard a voice behind me say, "Hannah." When I turned around, I saw that Maria had opened her eyes. "Mom. I'm gonna call that person." "What?" Maria sat up in bed, grabbed her smartphone from the bedside table, and brought it to her ear. "Hello? This is Maria." "Yes, I'm fine. But I need to discuss something." 5 days later, Richard was found in a terrible state, emaciated and covered in wounds. "My name is Hannah Brown, I'm 29 years old, and I've been married for 4 years. Every day, I'm busy taking care of my mother-in-law. I had never done any caregiving before, so I was confused at first, but now I've learned a lot from watching videos on how to change diapers and other tasks. Somehow, I've managed to get by. My friends were worried when I suddenly had to start caregiving right after getting married, but it hasn't been as hard as they thought." Maria became paralyzed from the waist down 20 years ago when she protected 10-year-old Richard from a car crash while trying to avoid hitting a cat. My own mother had already passed away, and hearing this story moved me deeply. I even cried, remembering how kind my mother was. Richard and I met at a matchmaking party. He thought it would be hard to find a partner because he had to care for his mother. "Are you really okay with this?" he asked me several times after proposing. "Of course, I am. But I'm gonna quit my job. I want to take care of your mom myself, not leave it to a helper." "Really? That would be great. Mom is so reserved that she often can't ask the helpers for what she needs. Then I'll become a daughter-in-law she can rely on without hesitation." "Thanks. And being a stay-at-home wife is perfectly fine. Mom has a condo unit, and she gets rental income from it. She only charges $2,000 a month because she's renting it to some friends who helped her financially when I was born." $2,000. That's so cheap. They helped her out financially when I was born, and she's never forgotten their kindness. "It's wonderful that she remembers and repays their kindness." "Yeah, I guess so. Yeah." Even though Richard seemed to have mixed feelings about it, after we got married, Maria gave us all the rental income and half of her disability pension. We're incredibly grateful to the Johnsons. Apparently, it was the Johnson couple who helped when Richard was born. Just before Richard was born, my husband died in an accident. I was young back then and regretted not having life insurance. I couldn't rely on my or my husband's family due to circumstances and fell ill from the stress. I even thought of following him with my unborn child when Mrs. Johnson from work saved me. I see. Mrs. Johnson and her husband couldn't have children, so they offered financial help. It was a great emotional support when I was struggling. What a wonderful couple. Yes, I'm still grateful that I could repay their kindness. Though the accident 20 years ago was tragic, it wasn't all bad. Maria smiled gently at my words. Richard had to endure a lot, but looking back, there were many good things too, like meeting Kent. Kent is the one responsible for my mother-in-law's car accident. To be precise, it was the driver of the car Kent was riding in that caused the accident, but Kent felt responsible and still comes to check on my mother-in-law every 2 or 3 months. Kent, who is about 5 years older than my 58-year-old mother-in-law, always brings her a gift. Besides that, he also brings a gift for my late father-in-law and pays his respects. Then, he either talks with my mother-in-law in her room or has a conversation with me in the living room. Maria, is there anything you're struggling with? No, thank you for always asking, I'm fine. Call me anytime if you need anything. Kent's way of speaking is calm and gentle. There's a certain refinement about him, and I always thought he must be a CEO or executive. I'm home. Welcome back, Richard. Kent is here. Kent? Yes. Aren't you gonna say hello? Huh? No, I don't need to. He used to give me allowance when I was a kid, but now that I'm an adult, there's no benefit in saying hi. He's probably in Mom's room, right? I'm gonna eat. Oh, sorry. I didn't expect you home this early, so I haven't finished cooking yet. Fine. I'll take a shower first. Oh, can you turn on the heater? What? You didn't. You know today was Mom's checkup day. Fine, whatever. You're always thinking about Mom. Sometimes think about your husband too. Richard suddenly yelled. Who do you think is earning the money? At least do the housework so I can relax. He spat out these words and went to the bathroom. A heavy sigh escaped me. Richard used to be so happy that I was taking care of his mom right after we got married. But now he doesn't seem to like that I'm always taking care of her. He comes home drunk almost every night, complaining and staying out later and later. One day, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer. She might have 2 months to live. I covered my mouth in shock. My mother-in-law had to be admitted to the hospital immediately, and I hurriedly called Richard. 2 months left. Really? Yes, so she's being admitted urgently. Richard hung up before I could finish. After that, he never answered my calls. In desperation, I called Kent. I explained that I needed to prepare for her hospitalization, and he came to the hospital immediately. I know a renowned cancer specialist. I want her transferred to that hospital, Kent said to Maria as soon as he arrived. Maria, I want to help you. His pale face showed how genuinely worried he was for her. All right, but they've already started the admission process here. Although she was concerned, it turned out the doctor Kent mentioned was indeed famous for cancer treatment. The hospital staff were astonished when I told them. It's better if she can be treated there. The transfer was quickly arranged. The new hospital was far from our home. Though full care was provided, making an escort unnecessary, I decided to stay with my mother-in-law considering her unease, inability to move freely, and reserved nature. Fortunately, my mother-in-law's room was a spacious private room, complete with a kitchen and a sofa bed in an adjoining room for companions to stay. It even had a large bathroom, a sink, a TV, and a refrigerator resembling a hotel. I insisted on transferring to this hospital, so I'll cover the expenses. Oh no, Kent, that's too much. Nonsense, it's nothing. I want to support you. Kent. By the way, where's Richard? Isn't he worried? Well, I couldn't reach him. I sent him a message about the transfer. I see. Kent looked like he wanted to say something, but he just smiled kindly at my mother-in-law. Anyway, Maria, just focus on getting better. In the end, Richard didn't respond to my messages, and it was a month after she was admitted that he finally showed up at the hospital. He arrived without any notice and burst into the room loudly. What's with this room? It's like a hotel. He wandered around the room, marveling like a child. What have you been doing all this time? I contacted you so many times. Shut up. You'll wake Mom up. Richard stuck his pinky in his ear at my yelling. All right, you can go home now. I'll take care of Mom. But you have work too, Richard. I quit my job. What? What are you thinking? Richard clicked his tongue in irritation. You couldn't even handle the one job you had, the housework, and now you're criticizing me. What did you say? You never even helped with your own mother's care. While rummaging through his bag, Richard retorted. Divorce the wife who doesn't do housework. Sold the condo. Got the insurance money, and I'm gonna marry my mistress. Here, take this. What Richard threw at me was a signed divorce paper. What's this, and did you just say mistress? My hand trembled with anger as I picked up the divorce paper. Seeing me crush the paper in my hand, Richard snorted. Naomi is only 24. She's beautiful, and you don't stand a chance against her. I realized for the first time that extreme anger can make you dizzy. Richard raised a hand and left the hospital room, leaving me trembling with rage. I'm gonna buy some coffee. Sign it while I'm gone. As soon as the door closed, I heard a voice behind me say, Hannah. I turned around to see my mother-in-law, who was supposed to be asleep, had opened her eyes. Mom. I'm gonna call that person. What? My mother-in-law sat up in bed, took the smartphone from the bedside table, and put it to her ear. Hello, this is Maria. Yes, I'm fine. But I need to discuss something. She briefly explained what had just happened. Yes, thank you. I appreciate your help. Yes, understood. Thank you very much. Just as she hung up, the door opened and Richard came back in. Oh, Mom, you're awake. Yes. She replied quietly and then called me again, Hannah. I'm a bit cold, could you help me put on a cardigan? Oh, sure. Of course. As I draped the cardigan over her shoulders, she whispered to me. Can you help me buy some time? I nodded silently, meeting her gaze. By the way, Richard, Hannah just told me you're getting a divorce. What's that about? Huh? Oh. Hannah doesn't do any housework, you know? Really? I thought she was doing her best. You wouldn't know, Mom. You've been bedridden. The second floor is covered in dust. Her cooking is lousy too. Oh, I always thought Hannah's cooking was delicious. Richard gritted his teeth at his mother's every contradictory comment. Forcing a smile, he tried to maintain his composure. Well, I just think it might be better to get a divorce and find a new wife. Wait. Reckard, you're saying this is all my fault, but what about his mistress? What? What's going on? When did this start? Explain everything from the beginning. My mother-in-law and I began questioning Richard thoroughly, and though he couldn't see, she was recording the entire conversation on her smartphone. What do you mean you sold the condo? What about the Johnsons who were living there? Talking about the condo they rented to the couple who had helped them, my mother-in-law raised her voice even more. Because Mom can't be discharged from the hospital, right? I just got my inheritance a little early. I've already told the Johnsons to leave by the end of the month. They should be grateful they got such a nice place for just $2,000 a month. How shameless can you be? Whether out of anger or sorrow, Maria's voice trembled. 2 hours had passed since we started talking when a knock sounded on the door. Excuse me. A man in a suit, about 50 years old, entered, followed by 4 men who clearly weren't ordinary citizens. Who are you guys? Richard tried to sound tough, but his voice was clearly shaking. Watch your mouth when you're talking to the underboss. Say it again if you dare. Richard, trembling with fear, retreated to the farthest corner of the room. Wow, not even trying to protect your mom and wife? What a pathetic man. The man called the underboss laughed mockingly. Unlike the other men, his quiet voice was the most terrifying. Bobby. It's been a while, Maria. The underboss, whom Maria called Bobby, showed respect. Then, turning to Richard, he spoke coldly. Time to teach you some manners. Huh, what? Richard, looking clueless, had his arms grabbed by the men. Stop! Let go! Another man pinned Richard's head down as he struggled violently. This is a hospital, keep it down, will ya? Richard, terrified by the man whispering in his ear, shrank back. Seeing Richard, now subdued and on the verge of tears, the underboss turned to the door. Boss, we've secured him. At those words, a man entered the room. Kent! Both Richard and I exclaimed in surprise. What's going on? Richard looked at Maria, but she was staring straight at Kent. I recorded the conversation with my son as you asked. Thank you. I'll listen to it carefully later to understand what's going on. Kent nodded to Maria and then fixed his gaze on Richard. Richard, I'm very disappointed. You've grown into such a despicable person. Though Kent's voice wasn't raised, his usual calm demeanor was gone, and just hearing his words made me shiver involuntarily. Looking at Richard, he seemed ready to collapse from Kent's imposing presence, his face turning pale. Call the police. Richard's trembling voice could barely manage those words. Both his voice and legs were trembling. At Richard's words, Kent shook his shoulders and then burst into laughter. That's great. Let's have you arrested. Kent grinned as he spoke. Selling a condo that's in your mother's name without permission is a crime, you know? Terrified by Kent's narrowed eyes, Richard struggled to escape despite being held by the men. I sold the condo you bought, is that why you're mad? Mom! Help me! He'll listen to you, right? Please, Mom! Maria remained unresponsive, as if she couldn't hear Richard's pleas. She then smiled gently at Kent. Kent, thank you for coming despite your busy schedule. I believe Maria thanked him at this moment on purpose. It was to show Richard that she wasn't on his side. She knew this attitude from his only blood relative would push him into a corner more than anything else. No, it can't be. Did Mom call these guys? Richard's eyes reflected nothing but despair as he muttered in disbelief. Hannah, I was wrong. I won't divorce you, please, help me. Suddenly changing his tone, Richard pleaded pathetically, seeking help from me. I glanced at him before silently heading to the desk. I signed the divorce papers, then thrust them towards Richard. Don't be ridiculous. I refuse to stay married to you any longer. Oh, your hands are full. I'll submit these for you. I noticed tears welling up in Richard's eyes as he looked at me over the divorce papers. Oh dear, it seems no one is willing to help you. Kent's cold, mocking voice whispered. You were saved at birth, protected in a car accident. Now, who will save you for the third time? Richard could only stammer and tremble, unable to form words. But then, a flicker of hope appeared in his eyes. Naomi! Naomi will! The last name Richard called out was his mistress's. Naomi, huh? Hopefully, she's wealthy, or loves you enough to follow you to hell. At Kent's signal, Bobby searched Richard's pockets. Finding his smartphone, Bobby operated it and whispered to Richard. Beg her to save you with your life. The ringing sound filled the hospital room as the phone was put on speaker. Pick up! Please pick up! Richard chanted desperately under his breath. Hello? A young woman's carefree voice answered. Naomi! Naomi! Help me! Huh? What's wrong, Richard? Help me! The mafia is gonna kill me for selling the condo without permission. Are you serious? But you said that condo belonged to your mom, Richard. That's right! But the condo was bought by the mafia boss for my mom. Richard shouted in frustration. What? What are you talking about? You dumb woman. Why can't you understand? Richard kept yelling incoherently, getting angry that Naomi didn't understand, but expecting her to comprehend such a sudden call was unreasonable. Excuse me. You must be Naomi? Kent, unable to watch any longer, intervened in their conversation. Who are you? As Richard said, more or less. More or less? Wait, are you the boss? Clearly shaken, Naomi stammered. The condo. I need you to think of it as unsellable. Okay. To save Richard, can you prepare $200,000? What? Please, Naomi. You're my only hope. What are you talking about? I don't have that kind of money. That's okay. You're a young lady. There are plenty of ways to earn it. No way, why should I suffer because of him? Why, indeed, well, you fell in love with the wrong man. Naomi must be regretting her involvement with Richard more than ever. No, I can't, it's impossible. Her trembling voice made it clear she was terrified. You have to pay. My life depends on it. No way. I don't care about your life. Naomi's response was the coldest of all.
Naomi, I only thought about marrying you because you said I wouldn't have to work and could live lavishly on the condo and insurance money. Don't drag me into this mess. Naomi!
Naomi hung up mercilessly, and Richard's screams echoed in the room. Too bad, Richard.
It seems you've misjudged who you should have cherished. No!
Richard collapsed to his knees, and the men dragged him away.
Stand up properly.
Thank you. Maria expressed her gratitude, and Kent did the same thing before leaving with Bobby. 5 days later, Richard was found in the mountains, emaciated and covered in scratches. A hiker found him, and when Richard asked them not to call the police, they kindly called me instead. For some reason, Richard had my number. Of course, Kent's men went to retrieve him, and after receiving medical attention, he was brought to Maria's hospital room. His hair was a mess, with a few leaves stuck in it. Richard had gauze patches on his face and body, looking like he was about to cry with tears welling up in his eyes like a child. Both my mother-in-law and I couldn't help but laugh.
Don't laugh! I almost died!
Though he said it seriously, everyone in the room, including Kent, burst into laughter.
You're such an exaggerator. At least you got a rare experience. People would pay to have such an experience.
It turned out that Richard was taken to a training monastery in the mountains. He had experienced the severe training from early morning.
From day one, it's been nothing but prayers, and for the last 3 days, they only let me drink water.
It's fine.
Before you went to the monastery, a doctor checked your health condition.
Kent's words, still tinged with laughter, made Richard pause. Unable to stay silent, he began to speak again.
Besides that,
Richard shivered as he spoke.
At night, the young men guarding me told me about the harsh realities of the mafia world. They said I'd be joining the family after a week of training. I had only 2 days left, so I escaped desperately from the monastery.
Richard seemed to think that we would comfort and welcome him back, but I quickly shattered that illusion.
Oh, I see. So, you didn't actually get hurt by the mafia. You chickened out halfway, got injured while running away, and got dirty from falling over roots, right?
I said, trying to stifle my laughter.
Is that about right? Well, yes, but...
Richard collapsed on the floor, exhausted.
Mom, Kent, Hannah. I'll give you all the money from the condo sale, and I'll pay the alimony. So please, forgive me.
As Richard broke down in tears, we exchanged glances.
What should we do? Well, since he ran away from the training, how about he starts over from day one? No, please, not that again. If not that, should we think of something else to straighten him out? Kent, any ideas? How about catching crabs in the Bering Sea? The Bering Sea, crabs? What's that?
Richard looked up at Kent.
You catch crabs while enduring rough waves and freezing temperatures. You can make about $300,000 in 2 months, perfect for someone who needs money. But it's known as the world's toughest fishing job, much harder than the monastery training. Please! Anything but that!
Richard apologized. Despite his tricks, he had neither courage nor determination, truly a pathetic man.
Also, you said you'd give us all the money from selling the condo, but that's not enough. We spent more buying it back.
Kent had bought back the condo before the Johnsons were evicted.
Naomi worked at a real estate company. They collaborated, so even though it was under Maria's name, they managed to fake the sale. I'm sorry.
Richard had to sign a promissory note to pay back the money made from the sale and the difference that Kent paid to buy it back. He also added a clause to pay me alimony.
So?
Richard looked around nervously before speaking timidly.
The name on the hospital room was not Brown but Miller. Oh, I remarried Kent. What?
This must have been the biggest shock for Richard. He staggered and grabbed the bed rail to steady himself.
He had been proposing to me for a long time, but I kept refusing. However, after the cancer diagnosis, he became even more supportive and caring. I truly felt I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him.
Richard's voice fell as he spoke. Yeah, Mom, you only have 2 months, or rather, 1 month left.
What? I'm still going to live for a long time. Huh?
Richard had misunderstood. The 2-month prognosis was if nothing was done. Since he cut off the phone call, he didn't hear the whole story. The surgery was successful, and although Maria needed monitoring, she was on the road to recovery.
With this, I'm changing the beneficiary of my insurance. No way!
Even now, he was counting on his mother's insurance money. He probably thought he could use it to pay alimony to me and debts to Kent. Crushed by despair, Richard sat on the floor, crying loudly. Whether the training at the monastery changed his heart, or the fear of Kent and the mafia did. Richard found a new job and started paying alimony and the difference in condo money to Kent and me every month. He was told that if he was even 1 day late, the mafia's men would come to his workplace to collect, so Richard was desperate. Since that incident, he hasn't been in contact with his mistress, Naomi. She is probably living quietly and far away, terrified of Kent. As for me, after divorcing Richard, I started working for Kent, living in the house. My job is to take care of Maria, or more like being her companion. The cooking and housework are handled by the housekeepers. Kent is also planning to retire soon and pass the leadership of the family to Bobby. From now on, Maria and I will surely lead peaceful and happy lives.
I'm carrying Mike's baby.
Not tired of just interrupting weddings, a former best friend declares so. Instead of denying it, Mike beamed with a full smile.
I'm gonna marry Ellie.
Those words caused a stir among the family, except for Hannah and her mother. As everyone else looked on in disbelief, only the two of them appeared happy. All I could do was look on in dismay.
That's okay with you, right, Hannah? I'm sorry, Hannah. Please let me have Mike.
She pleaded as if they were the protagonists of their own story, their eyes sparkling. In response, I said, sure. And with a smile, I passed the bride's roll to Ellie. Then, leaving the venue with only my mother following, she commented, "Hey, that girl." "Yeah, no doubt about it." I nodded, agreeing. Glancing back one last time, I saw the two of them smiling happily at each other. To myself, I laughed, thinking, she's a married woman, no less. After a while, oh, it's for Mike. I wonder if he's heard the truth. As an insistent call came from him. My mother and I picked up the phone, laughing together. I am Hannah Arthur, a 26-year-old office worker. I was raised in what you might call a single-parent family. My father passed away due to illness when I was still young, leaving me with little memory of him. My mother, with help from my grandparents and friends, raised me on her own. Sorry, Hannah, I'm gonna be late again today, so you head off to bed without me. Okay, I understand. Just don't overdo it, I'm fine. My mother worked hard every day, and sometimes I felt lonely. The presence of my best friend and relatives became my support system. Especially Ellie and her family, who took care of us like we were their own.
Hannah. Mom said you should come over today. Really? That's great because my mom said she'd be late today.
My mom and Ellie's mom are best friends, too, and they often invite me over to their house. Because of this, Ellie and I grew up like sisters, talking about everything. That's why I trust her from the bottom of my heart. I bought a new game the other day. You should come over and play sometime. Thanks, Tom. I'll come over on my next day off. Tom Turner, another person I owe a lot to, is a relative. His parents live nearby and have always looked out for me and my mom. Tom, being their only son, treated me like a little sister. Just watch, Hannah. I'll run my heart out in the parents' relay at the sports festival, making up for your dad. At the sports festival, he made a special effort to attend and garnered everyone's attention by sprinting in the parents' relay run. Because of people like them, I was able to grow up without any trouble. We never struggled financially thanks to my mom's hard work, and I can't thank her enough. Now, I'm working hard at my job, trying to give back to my mom and those who have helped us. Someday, I want to go on a trip with everyone. Thinking about this, I've been spending my days. After work one day. Oh, I've got a message from Mike. Could it be your boyfriend? Getting in touch after work, you must be loved. Well, yeah. When I checked my smartphone, there was a message from my boyfriend, Mike. Mike and I have been dating since college.
Wait, Hannah? Hannah from the same middle school, right?
Could it be, Mike? Originally, Mike and I went to the same school up until middle school. But due to my mom's job, we moved away before high school, putting physical distance between us. Then, we reunited in college. Our conversation picked up from there, and after he confessed, we started dating. So, I guess I'll head home early today. Yeah, thanks for your hard work. Even though we started working at different places, we still make plans to meet up after work and have dinner together sometimes. Today was one of those days, with a message from him saying, I finished up early, so I'll come pick you up at your office. Waiting in front of my office for him to arrive, Hannah? I heard someone call out. Turning around, there was Ellie.
Ellie? Long time no see. Really, it's been a while. We've both been so busy, haven't had the chance to meet.
True to her words, we've both been busy, and haven't seen each other lately. So, it was a happy surprise to run into Ellie like this. While we were catching up with great joy. Sorry to keep you waiting, Hannah. Mike arrived. He called out to me and then turned his gaze to Ellie. Oh. Hi. Both of them looked surprised. Come to think of it, I moved away after middle school, but they went to the same high school. So, their surprise at this unexpected reunion was understandable. Mike came to pick up Hannah, does that mean?
Yeah, we're dating.
I announced our relationship, and Ellie looked down for a moment. She seemed puzzled, but then she quickly looked up and smiled at us.
Is that so? Congratulations. You guys are perfect for each other.
She said with a smile, unchanged from the past. Comforted by her familiar demeanor, I smiled back and said, thanks.
It'd be nice to go out for drinks together sometime when we have the chance.
Nodding at her suggestion, we promised to meet up again and then went our separate ways. Walking and discussing where to eat dinner together.
Ellie really hasn't changed a bit.
I found myself thinking of her again at his remark. Indeed, she's as beautiful as ever. Ellie has always been popular because of her glamorous appearance, and just now, there were guys sneakily glancing at her. However, I'd rather you not talk about her like that in front of me. Sorry. That was thoughtless of me. When I honestly shared how I felt, Mike apologized with a laugh. Then, we switched back to more pleasant topics. At that moment, I was oblivious, not understanding why Ellie had looked down. After a while. Oh. What's wrong? Did you and your boyfriend have a fight? It's not like that, but I felt something was off with Mike. We used to go on dates every weekend, but sorry, work's been crazy. I can't make it to our date today, he's been canceling on me lately. Even dinners after work, which we used to have together daily, have now dwindled to about once a week. His puzzling behavior made me wonder if he was cheating. I can't believe Mike would do something like that, but I'm worried. I murmured, sighing deeply. That's when I got a message from Ellie. How about we catch up over tea, just the two of us? The message read, and I thought it was perfect timing to meet. It's a good opportunity to talk to Ellie about it. I didn't want to keep it to myself, and since Ellie had invited me out, I decided to confide in her. Well, it's understandable to feel anxious, but Mike's young, maybe it's natural for work to come first? I guess so, but Ellie seemed to think there was no need to worry. Seeing her like that, I started to think maybe I was overreacting.
Why not wait and see a little longer?
I nodded at her advice. I've always followed Ellie's advice since we were young. So, I decided to do as she suggested this time, too. We caught up on each other's recent news and promised to meet again, this time with our families.
Oh. It's from Mike.
On my way back, I got a message from Mike asking, "Can you meet now?" I immediately replied, "I can meet," and headed to him. And then, we ended up having dinner at a restaurant he had unusually reserved.
Hannah, will you marry me? I'm so happy. Yes, I will.
During that meal, I was proposed to by Mike. It turns out the reason we hadn't been meeting recently was because he was preparing this surprise. I felt ashamed for suspecting him of cheating while joyously looking at the engagement ring he gave me. I'm glad I talked to Ellie. At that moment, Mike let slip such words. Surprised to hear Ellie's name, I asked what he meant. Actually, I've been getting advice from Ellie. Apparently, Mike had been consulting with Ellie without my knowledge. Maybe that's why Ellie told me to wait and see. So, after I got home, I called her to thank her.
And then, he proposed. Congratulations. Doing as I said was the right choice, wasn't it? It really was. Thanks to you, Ellie.
As I agreed with Ellie's words, she suddenly fell silent. Just as I was about to ask what was wrong. I hope you'll be happy. What? Ellie said that. While I was confused by her words, she hung up. So I could not ask for clarification. It almost feels like she's saying I won't be happy. I murmured, shaking my head. It must be my imagination. Deciding not to dwell on it any further, I thought. I'll have plenty to keep me busy from now on. Then, I spent my days busily moving around, preparing for the wedding and visiting both families between work. As a result, I didn't have another chance to meet Ellie and never learned the true meaning behind her words. One day, I was called by my mother and decided to visit my childhood home.
Welcome back. Tom and Damien are here too. Oh. That's nice. It's been a while since I've seen both of them.
In the living room were Tom and his son Damien. It had been a while since I last saw Damien, and I wondered if he remembered me.
Hannah.
He came running up to me with a smile and hugged me. In fact, due to various circumstances, there was a time when I had taken care of him. Therefore, he was quite fond of me. Damien, I need to have an important talk with Hannah, so please go play in the other room. Amen. Damien reluctantly left, prompted by Tom. And my mother took him to another room. What's this important talk about? I asked, and Tom's expression turned serious. It's hard to say, but actually. He then shared a certain truth with me. I was shocked and at first, couldn't believe what I was hearing. But gradually, anger started to bubble up inside me. So, I have a proposal. I nodded to his suggestion. Flashing through my mind were Mike, who had proposed to me, and Ellie, who had been happy about our marriage. I'll never forgive them. I found myself muttering those words. Time passed, and the day of the wedding arrived.
You look so beautiful, Hannah.
Thank you, Mom. My mother, as well as Mike's parents, my in-laws, had been looking forward to this day. My mother-in-law, who has known me since I was young, was especially emotional. Thank you for marrying my son, she said, tears of joy in her eyes.
You look beautiful, Hannah. Thank you.
Mike complimented me, and I smiled in response. The ceremony was supposed to proceed without a hitch.
Hold on a moment.
The quiet ceremony was interrupted by Ellie, dressed as a bride. Her stomach was slightly enlarged, showing she was pregnant.
Ellie? What's going on?
Mike, surprised by her sudden appearance. Meanwhile, I looked at her calmly. What's happening, Ellie?
I'm sorry, Hannah, but Mike is going to marry me.
Saying so, she caressed her stomach.
I'm carrying Mike's baby.
Not content with just crashing the wedding, my former best friend made such a declaration. To that, Mike didn't deny but instead beamed with a full smile.
It really is my child. Then, I am.
Those words alone were unbelievable. He then dropped a bombshell.
I'm going to marry Ellie.
Those words caused everyone but my mother and me to be shaken. Amidst the disbelieving stares, only the two of them looked happy. All I could do was look on in dismay. Is that okay, Hannah?
I'm sorry, Hannah. Please let me have Mike.
As if they thought they were the protagonists of their own story, they looked at me with sparkling eyes. In response, I said, "Sure." With a smile, I passed on the role of bride to Ellie. And then, leaving the venue, only my mother followed me. "Hey, that girl." "Yeah, no doubt about it." I nodded in agreement with my mom's words. Glancing back one last time, I saw the two of them smiling happily at each other. At that sight, I couldn't help but laugh to myself, thinking, she's a married woman, and yet those two are about to descend into hell. "Both of you, good job today," Tom said as we were leaving the venue. I shared with him that everything had gone as expected. "Then, I'll make my entrance as planned. Please take care of Damien," he said before leaving Damien with us and entering the venue.
"Let's go to the store, Damien." "Yeah."
We watched Tom, radiating anger, and proceeded to a nearby store as planned. The store had a kids' space where Damien played happily while my mom and I discussed what would happen next. Shortly after, "Oh, it's from Mike. I wonder if he's heard the truth." Mike was frantically calling. My mom and I picked up the phone, laughing. "What's going on?
What the heck is this all about?"
Don't yell all of a sudden. Explain first, please." As I spoke, Mike stuttered out an explanation. Apparently, he tried to switch the bride to Ellie and continue the wedding. However, Tom appeared, took the microphone from the host, and boldly asked Ellie, "We're not divorced yet, and you plan to marry your affair partner?" Mike was confused, asking, "What do you mean?" And Ellie was surprised, "Why are you here?" Listening to the story, I thought to myself, of course, it would end up like this.
"You knew Ellie was married?"
Yes, of course. Ellie was my former best friend, and Tom is my relative. I was the one who brought those two together. It's only natural I would know, right? Yes, Ellie and Tom were married, and Damien is their son. And it was also me who brought the two of them together and encouraged them to date. This was back when I was in college. I can only ask you, Hannah. You don't have to beg, I'd be happy to introduce you to someone. When Ellie reached out to me, she asked me to introduce her to Tom. Ellie had known Tom for a long time, apparently, he was her first love. She hadn't forgotten about him and begged me to make the introduction. So, I contacted Tom, and since he was single, I introduced him to Ellie.
"Hannah, listen. I'm pregnant with Tom's child."
Not long after they started dating, Ellie got pregnant. As a result, Ellie and Tom decided to get married while still students. At the time, I was overjoyed at the marriage of two people I respected and offered my blessings.
"Congratulations. Are you having a wedding?" "Sort of. But since it's a shotgun wedding and we're students, we're planning something small, just for family." "Oh, but Hannah, since you're Cupid here, you're invited."
So, I was invited, but Mike, who I had just started dating at the time, wasn't. Moreover, Ellie, wanting to keep her student pregnancy somewhat private, had sworn me to secrecy, so I never told him. That's why Mike didn't know. But even if you were invited to their home, it doesn't feel like they're married. Well, you wouldn't normally be house hunting. Plus, you seem to head straight for the bedroom.
"What?"
Mike was clearly shaken by my words.
"How did you know that?"
Tom told me. Actually, what Tom told me that day was about Ellie and Mike's affair. Just as Tom realized the truth, he learned about my marriage to Mike. He came to my family home right away to inform us, asking my mom to call me.
"That's not true.
We'll be seeking alimony," I told him, cutting off his protests and hanging up the phone. Then, I sighed deeply. Well done. Thank you. I'm really exhausted. I replied to my mom, and then Damien, who had been playing in the kids' space, came running up to me. Are you tired, Hannah? Are you okay? I'll pat your back to make you feel better." Saying so, he climbed onto my lap and stretched out his hands desperately to pat my back. My mom and I were both soothed by his actions. "I'm sorry, Hannah," my mom murmured as she watched Damien head back to the play area. I looked at my mom's face. "It's because I was always so busy with work, I made you feel lonely. Maybe that's why things turned out this way, because of all you had to put up with."
"That's not true. You raised me well."
Indeed, there were many times I had to endure being away from my mom. But that's a different issue. It was my lack of judgment. Yeah, maybe I need to be a bit more discerning. My mom sighed, and I gave a wry smile. "Thank you for looking after Damien." Shortly after, we rejoined Tom and went back to our family home. With Damien napping after playing so much, we had a leisurely tea. Then, the doorbell rang. "I'll go check it out." After a few minutes, my mom returned.
"Hannah! Tom! Listen to me!"
Mike and Ellie barged in, looking flustered. We coldly told the agitated couple, "Damien is sleeping, so keep it down." We then left Damien with my mom and moved to another room. The only one I truly love is Hannah. And I love Tom. That was, not serious. Right, it was just meant as a joke. They pleaded with us, showing their ugly true colors. We looked at them coldly. "You two were dating back in high school, weren't you?" When I told them that, both of their bodies stiffened. Right after hearing the truth from Tom, I contacted another friend who had attended the wedding and had gone to the same high school. "I heard you two were quite affectionate in front of everyone at school. Do you even have a sense of shame?" I said, making them hang their heads. The two of them, who dated in high school, had a big fight right before graduation over their future colleges. Ellie wanted Mike to choose a lower-ranking university to be with her, to which Mike said, "That's absolutely impossible," prioritizing himself. And so, they broke up after the fight. Later on, Mike met me, and Ellie met Tom. Hearing that story made me remember something. Ellie and I had grown up like sisters, sharing everything. Even the boyfriends we had in middle school. When I told her about a boy who asked me out and how we started dating smoothly. A few days later, that boy dumped me and became your boyfriend. That's, well. And it's always been your whims that were prioritized, hasn't it? Being together meant clashing opinions at times. However, it was always me who gave in, so her whims, not my opinions, were what mattered. I never minded, so I didn't think much of it. But apparently, to others, Ellie appeared as a selfish girl.
And then, behind my back, you called me a poor kid from a single-parent family.
Is that true? I asked, and Ellie looked away. It seemed unable to come up with an excuse.
It's not just Ellie. Mike, you also looked down on me, didn't you?
That's, well. Mike appeared kind on the surface. However, there were odd things about him. Where to go, what to eat, his opinion always came first. Moreover, I was the one making all the reservations.
And yet, whenever there's a problem, it's all my fault.
I had managed to deal with it without feeling particularly troubled, so I had let it go. As I spoke matter-of-factly, the two turned pale.
I'm truly sorry. I'll change for sure, please forgive me,
Mike said, prostrating himself. Ellie followed suit, also getting down on her knees. Seeing the two of them like this, I sighed. I must have been taken for granted. Now I understand. Neither of them is truly remorseful. They're just trying to appeal to us to avoid paying damages, hoping we'll somehow forgive them.
I'm breaking off the engagement with Mike. So, go ahead and get married without worry,
I told them, causing both to turn pale and tremble. Then, Tom stepped forward. Damien isn't my child, is he? At those words, Ellie's body jerked in shock. Despite her glamorous appearance, Ellie had a reputation for being pure and innocent. She used that to her advantage, hopping from one man to another. And Damien was also one of those men's child, not related to Tom by blood. After learning about your affair, I did a DNA test. The results denied any parental relationship between me and Damien. When I confronted you about it, you ran away, which was quite troublesome. Driven by anger, Tom confronted Ellie, which resulted in her fleeing. Following his confrontation, Ellie fled and has been avoiding Tom ever since, refusing to discuss the matter. And that's what led to the incident at the wedding.
As for that pregnancy, I'm not even sure if it's real.
The pregnancy is real, Ellie hastily claimed. Well, I guess so. The camera caught you saying, "I'm pregnant, what should we do?" Tom's mention of camera made them go beyond pale to white-faced. In fact, Tom's house is equipped with surveillance cameras. However, they were only regularly checked when Damien was younger. Now, they just record without much review. When I checked them after a long time, I found the affair recorded. Ellie had discussed her pregnancy and crashing the wedding on camera. Thus, we were able to plan our strategy in advance. The two trembled violently at Tom's words. Then, Tom handed Ellie the divorce papers. "I'm divorcing you.
I'll take custody of Damien, and of course, I'll be demanding alimony. I'll also be claiming compensation for breaking off the engagement,"
I announced following Tom. Despite their pleas for us to reconsider, both of us refused. Go ahead and get married without any worries. You'll never find happiness anyway. But
enough now.
Just then, my mom burst into the room with force. I won't forgive anyone who hurts my precious daughter. Get out of here now. Overwhelmed by my mom's intensity, the two scurried away. Watching them leave, we burst into laughter. What a pathetic sight. Really. After a good laugh, I turned back to Tom.
What will you do now, Tom?
I guess I'll have to move out.
I don't want to stay in that place, so I'm planning to live in a monthly rental for a while,
Tom said with a troubled smile. Though everything went according to plan, there wasn't enough time. So they couldn't arrange a new place to live. His parents had passed away a few years ago, and since the family home was sold, someone else lives there now.
Oh, then you should come stay here,
my mom suggested out of the blue. Surprised, we all turned to look at her.
Damien is fond of both me and Hannah. So, why not live here together? Hannah, you're about to start remote work, aren't you?
At my mom's words, I nodded. Indeed, my company was introducing remote work, and I was scheduled to work from home after my holiday.
You wouldn't want to stay in a house with that man, right?
At that, I nodded again. Indeed, it would be more efficient for both me and Tom to live in this house. We looked at each other, and then bowed our heads to my mom, thanking her for taking us in. Dad? What's happening? Damien, rubbing his sleepy eyes, came waking up. He tilted his head at us, bowing to my mom.
Damien, from today, we're going to live in this house.
With Hannah and Grandma?
Yes, together.
At Tom's words, Damien beamed with a smile. By the way, Damien calls my mom Grandma. He's that fond of her.
Please take care of us, Damien.
Yeah. Despite the hardships, Damien's smile made it all seem worthwhile. After that, we moved out of our respective homes and into my family home. I was held back by Mike and Tom by Ellie, but we both ignored them.
Hannah! We're best friends, right? I've always been there for you.
Ellie called me, crying and pleading. The old me might have felt sorry for her. But not anymore.
I don't consider you my best friend anymore. And it wasn't you who took care of me, it was your mother.
With that, I hung up. Cuteness leads to 100-fold hatred, exactly right. The more I had trusted her before, the more insignificant she became the moment she betrayed me. Now, it's time for her to atone. Thinking so, I blocked Ellie's contact. Later, I received apologies from Ellie's mother and my in-laws. The two of them were thoroughly reprimanded by their parents. I've made sure to spread the word about this incident. My mom runs a business. She had shared the story with her clients. As a result, it seems both were fired from their jobs. They're probably struggling quite a bit after being sued for damages by us. Yeah, Ellie did work, but she was never good at her job. Ellie had tried to claim custody, but after accumulating debt and being disowned by her parents, I prefer Dad over Mom. Because Mom never pays attention to me, Damien's words led to Tom being granted custody. In reality, Ellie had been neglecting Damien. Hannah, when you were a child, we took care of you so much. Now it's your turn to take care of me, she would say, sometimes leaving Damien with me. During the weekdays, Ellie's mother took care of him, and on weekends, it was me and my mom. Tom was busy with work, believing Ellie's words, "I'll take good care of Damien, so you focus on your job," leading him to work hard every day from early morning till late at night. Recently, realizing this was not the way to live, he started spending more time with Damien. That decision seemed to have made all the difference. By the way, what will happen to that child? I was concerned about the child in Ellie's womb. I couldn't see her being capable of raising a child. And Mike was just as self-centered. That child will be taken care of by Ellie's mother, who will entrust the child to a relative. Unlike us, Ellie's mother truly was a close friend of my mom. I trust her, so I'm sure the child will be happy. Relieved, I sighed. Then, Tom took my hand. Hannah, if you're okay with it, would you go out with me? What? His sudden confession made me stare at him in surprise. Tom seemed a bit embarrassed. My first love was always you, Hannah. It turns out Tom had always had feelings for me. But he suppressed them after I introduced him to Ellie, and they started dating. But I won't hold back anymore. Please, go out with me. Soon after, we started dating. My mom seemed to sense it and watched us with a fond smile. Hey, Damien. What would you do if I said I wanted to be your mom? Hannah being my mom? I'd be really happy. Damien's words encouraged us, and now we are considering marriage. I'll definitely make you happy, Hannah. I'm looking forward to it, I replied with a smile to Tom's words. Since then, we've gotten married and become one family. Hey, Mama Hannah. What's up, Damien? One day, Damien looked up at me a bit shyly. I found his gesture adorable and asked while patting his head. You know, I want a little brother or sister. His words made me blush this time. When I told Tom, he blushed just the same. Later, we decided to fulfill Damien's wish. Sometime after. There's a baby in here, right? Yes, that's right. Here's where your little brother or sister is, I told Damien, now pregnant with Tom's child. Damien, imitating me, gently stroked my belly. Truly, Tom's child. My child is in there. And Damien, he is our child too. I know. From now on, it'll be me, Hannah, Mom, and 2 kids, a happy family of 5. Tom said, and I nodded in agreement. I do my best for my family and me from now on, I pledged in my heart. I'm moving in with my parents today. If you don't like it, we can divorce and you can leave. Ryan stood defiantly, with a smug look on his face as he looked at me. Then you're fired and can leave the company. I confronted Ryan with my true feelings. I sighed softly and looked at Ryan with cold eyes. Ryan, seeing my gaze, tensed up visibly. Anxiety spread across his face. My name is Kelly, 44 years old. I run a company that manufactures vehicles and parts for transportation. The company was founded by my grandfather, making me the 3rd generation. It's a family-run business. Originally, I had no intention of taking over the company and wanted to lead a normal life. I wasn't particularly good at school and planned to find a job at a general company after graduating. In fact, I landed a job at an IT company. However, when I was 26, my parents died in an unexpected accident. I have an older brother who loves research and is always holed up in his graduate lab. My father left a will stating that I was to become the next president of the company. After that, it felt like I was on a roller coaster. I quit my current job and joined my father's company. The role of president was temporarily filled by the executive vice president, and I worked hard to learn the job. I worked tirelessly, sparing no moment even for sleep, to learn everything about the products we made and how to manage the business. At first, people treated me delicately, as if I were a delicate flower, but gradually they opened up to me. Gradually, I found the work interesting and became president at the age of 40. I've lived for my work, dedicating my life to the company. As everyone around me got married, I didn't have a single boyfriend. I always prioritized work over leisure. I traveled domestically and internationally for the company, so much so that I hardly remember holidays like Christmas or Thanksgiving. Because of this, my relatives started to nag me about finding a successor. Every time I met relatives at gatherings, they would insensitively tell me to hurry up or I won't be able to have children. "Aren't you lonely?" some would ask. I knew arguing would only bring more nagging. So I just smiled wryly and left the conversation quickly. Thanks to dedicating my life to the company, our performance steadily improved. Incorporating IT played a big part in this. I started to have a bit more free time and could enjoy my leisure time. That's when I met Ryan, and we met through bowling. A client recommended it, and I took it up lightly, finding it suited my personality and got quite into it. I even bought my own ball and shoes and started participating in tournaments. Ryan was someone I frequently saw at the bowling alley. He was fun to talk to, taught me many things I didn't know, and we even entered tournaments as a pair. After going out to eat several times, Ryan confessed his feelings on one of those occasions, and we started dating. Ryan is the same age as me, but often looks younger, sometimes even in his 20s. I've often been mistaken for his older sister. "You probably think I'm unreliable," he would say, looking embarrassed every time. Ryan has many hobbies. From baseball to soccer and golf, he not only likes watching sports but also playing them. Influenced by him, I took up golf. It wasn't just sports, he also took me to concerts and theaters. Ryan introduced me to a world I never knew, and I became completely captivated by him. The time I spent with Ryan was very stimulating and fun for me. My first boyfriend at 44. It wouldn't be strange for me to feel elated. Amidst these light-hearted days, Ryan suddenly said something unexpected. "Would you meet my parents?" I was at a loss for words at his sudden request. "If I'm gonna marry, it's gonna be you, Kelly. I want to introduce you to my parents." It has been about 2 months since we officially started dating. It felt a bit early, but I wasn't young anymore. I wasn't without my anxieties. But I was also happy. I had no intention of refusing. A week later, we visited Ryan's family home. The house was neatly arranged, with a faintly pleasant smell. In the living room, Ryan's dad and mom welcomed us. Ryan's mom had an elegant air about her, with her hair dyed a beautiful shade of purple. "My son is lucky to be dating someone as adorable as you," she said with a beaming smile. "You're truly a wonderful young lady." Receiving such praise made me feel a tickle of unease on my back. Ryan's parents continued to shower me with compliments until I blushed. Ryan, sitting beside me, looked proud. "Right? Finding someone like her at 44 is a real catch," Ryan said with a laugh, but I felt a bit uncomfortable with his wording. A sense of unease began to spread in my chest. But Ryan and his parents were all smiles, making me think that getting along with such lovely in-laws after marriage would be possible. The anxiety I felt earlier vanished. However, I noticed Ryan calling his parents mommy and daddy. I used to call my parents mommy and daddy too, but is it common for adult men to do the same? It seems rare. Perhaps I'm just out of touch with societal norms. Having lost my parents early and being focused on work, I admit I'm not well-versed in social conventions. I decided not to dwell on it, assuming it's just me being unconventional. Surely, Ryan must have a good relationship with his parents. Ryan often praised his mother, which is usually a good thing. However, when we were talking about cooking, Ryan made a comment that felt off.
Mommy's meatloaf is the best in the world.
He even slightly belittled the meat and potatoes I made.
Kelly's meatloaf just isn't as good as Mommy's.
Hearing this, I couldn't manage a smile.
Perfect, you should get the recipe from her,
Ryan said in a tone different from usual. Why was he being so authoritative? Unaware of my ambiguous expression, he exchanged smiles with his mother. Ryan's mother started writing down the meat and potatoes recipe.
With this, Kelly, you can make something similar to Mommy's.
I was unsure whether to be happy or not. My expression turned into the vague smile I reserve for relatives. As the evening grew darker and it was time to leave, the conversation turned to marriage.
I'd marry you right now if I could. It'd make life easier, especially since freelancing doesn't pay much,
Ryan said, shocking me.
What? Freelancer?
My eyes widened. Ryan had said he worked in sales. I hadn't told him about my job either. I just worked at a company making parts. I was embarrassed to say I was the CEO, but I had no idea Ryan was a freelancer. Stunned, Ryan snapped at me.
You thought just because he's 44, right? There's a deep reason behind it.
Apparently, Ryan's mother has always been frail and sickly. Moreover, 2 years ago, his father became seriously ill and needed care. Ryan, who was working in sales at a printing company, quit his job to take care of his father and became a freelancer to manage his time for caregiving.
It's tough on Mommy alone. I just wanted to be there for my parents,
Ryan said, tearing up. I listened solemnly.
I thought it'd be okay to continue freelancing for their sake.
Glancing at his parents, Ryan nodded.
Daddy's been doing better lately, so I'm considering re-entering the workforce, especially now that I'm marrying Kelly. I gotta step up,
he said, sniffling. I felt ashamed for feeling disappointed upon learning he was a freelancer. Ryan had simply prioritized his parents over his job. What a kind and warm-hearted person he is. All my previous anxieties and discomfort had completely disappeared. A few days later, I made a suggestion to Ryan.
Why don't you try applying for a position at my company?
Ryan seemed surprised by my sudden proposal.
Only if you're okay with it, of course.
I was careful not to pressure him. Ryan seemed hesitant about working at the same company as me.
Our sales department is actually short on people. It would really help if you could join.
I chose my words carefully, not wanting to hurt his pride.
You'd be in a completely different department from me.
However, Ryan's concerns were elsewhere.
If I'm gonna work, I want to earn. I want to make Mommy feel secure.
It was all about the money, then. Did he think I wasn't earning enough? So, I pulled out my tablet and showed Ryan our company's job site, detailing the average salary, holidays, paid leave, and benefits.
This might not be too bad,
Ryan said, looking over the tablet with growing interest. Just as the company was looking to significantly expand its sales team, Ryan was hired without a hitch. I had informed my secretary about Ryan's application from the moment it was submitted, thinking I might ask her to handle any potential issues in the future. I also had another request for the secretary related to our website. Ryan and I decided to get married as soon as he got the job. We didn't have a ceremony. I didn't want my relatives to know, and I wanted to keep it a secret from Ryan that I was the CEO. I was surprised how easily his parents agreed, fearing they would object. His mother was only concerned about how often we could visit their home. Instead of a wedding, we held a small dinner at a restaurant and postponed our honeymoon. I was busy with work, but Ryan also seemed unenthusiastic about a honeymoon.
Can't be away from Mommy and Daddy, can I?
There it was again. Mommy and Daddy. It just didn't sit right with me. We decided against moving into a new house recommended by a real estate agent. Considering Ryan's freelancer status, it seemed best to avoid unnecessary expenses. After some thought, we chose my apartment as our new home. Ryan agreed. Probably because it was closer to his parents' house. After moving in together, Ryan's attitude began to change. He started looking down on me.
Which department are you in?
Ryan didn't seem to see me as a business owner. I didn't intend to keep it a secret, but I preferred it not to be widely known. Then, Ryan said something unbelievable.
Well, it doesn't matter. You'll be quitting anyway.
I was shocked.
Quit? Who's quitting?
What was he talking about? Was it not Ryan, but me who was supposed to quit? A bad feeling washed over me. Ryan glanced at me and smirked with an unfamiliar, unsettling smile. I felt a chill.
Got a problem with that?
Ryan looked at me coldly. My heart is racing. I managed to say I had no intention of quitting my job, clutching my chest. Then it hit me. Maybe Ryan wanted children.
Are you thinking about when we will have kids? Our company has excellent maternity and paternity leave.
Ryan interrupted with something unbelievable.
Kids are out of the question. Got my hands full with mommy and daddy.
I was confused, tilting my head. Ryan sighed heavily, exasperated.
My parents, I told you. They need care.
His sudden loud voice made me tense up. I tried to respond.
I heard about your father's condition, but you said he's been doing better, which is why you re-entered the workforce. Even if he's better now, they're both old.
Ryan snapped, anger flaring.
Aren't you worried at all?
His yelling filled the room, leaving me bewildered. I tried to calm down and sort through his words. It seemed Ryan intended to push his parents' care onto me, expecting me to quit my job to focus on it. After venting, Ryan smirked.
Well, I won't ask you to quit immediately. Dual income brings in more money, after all.
It seems my earnings were now the priority.
We'll be going back to my parents' house on our days off.
Every week? I intended to help as much as possible, but being pushed to provide care every week was too much. What surprised me the most was Ryan's attitude. Before we got married, Ryan was a fun-loving person with many interests, always finding joy in everything and reliably positive. I was at a loss for words by how much he had changed. Especially since a real estate agent had contacted us about a new house close to his parents' home, which was highly sought after, and I had gone ahead and signed the contract, hoping it would bring back the old Ryan. Now, the thought of going to his parents' house filled me with dread. Yet his parents always welcomed me warmly.
It's good of you to come. We have some cookies someone gave us, let's have them together.
His father said with a smile that reached his eyes.
Sorry to have you come over on your day off.
His mother said, showing great consideration for me.
No, not at all. Having Kelly here makes it feel like my daughter has come home.
His mother said, her eyes welling up with tears, and I felt the same warmth in my eyes. I decided to proceed with the new house purchase, thinking it would be all right with his parents around. His mother always prepared my favorite sweets whenever I visited, touching my heart each time. Despite not wanting to be dictated by Ryan, seeing his mother's happy face made me feel at ease. Eventually, Ryan and I started visiting his parents' house separately due to my work schedule, making it impossible to visit every weekend. Sometimes, I had to spend weekends out of town on business trips, so I made up for it by visiting during the weekdays. One weekday, I headed to his parents' house, familiar enough not to ring the doorbell. As I quietly entered and headed to the living room, I heard Ryan's voice, which was odd since he was supposed to be at work. Approaching the living room, I overheard a disturbing conversation and stopped to listen.
She's not very considerate, you know. And terrible at housework,
said his mother, a tone I had never heard before.
Couldn't you find someone better?
It sounded nothing like the kind and gentle woman I knew. I felt a tightness in my chest. My hands are going cold. After all the praise and gentle moments shared, to hear such harsh words was shocking. I couldn't bring myself to leave, even though I didn't want to hear any more. Ryan's sly, smooth voice followed.
Sorry, Mommy. But she's pretty sturdy and should be good for physical work.
I felt a growing revulsion towards Ryan.
It's all about training. With the right guidance, she'll be useful,
he said. I'm not Ryan and his mother's servant or slave.
For now, we need her money, so we'll put up with it. We have high hopes for the future.
They continued, laughing carelessly. I felt dizzy, my heart sinking. Despite the shock from Ryan's words, his mother's betrayal hit me harder. All her kindness, the shared moments of laughter, the cooking lessons. Was it all an act? Always smiling, sometimes with tears in her eyes. Was that all just an act? If so, staying in this marriage out of concern for her was a waste. It seemed I was merely seen as caregiving staff. And then, the final blow from his mother.
For now, we'll keep praising her, making her as happy as a fool.
I felt faint. Her harsh words unending.
Learn from me how to manipulate her. And guess what? She bought a house nearby,
Ryan said, sounding pleased. How did he find out?
The real estate agent called the house.
I realized the real estate agent had called our home. A mistake on my part for not insisting on mobile contact only.
Isn't that great? Now we can make her work even harder for us,
his mother said with a disdainful laugh. I had heard enough and quietly left the house. My grip on my phone so tight my hand was numb. On my way home, I sent Ryan and his mother a message saying I suddenly felt unwell. If I had known it would come to this, I would have never married. The word divorce was floating around in my head. I've always been someone who acts quickly once I've made up my mind. I always choose regretting doing something over not doing it at all. In society's eyes, divorcing so soon after getting married might seem bad. But considering the time spent with someone I dislike, sooner seemed better. I couldn't stand living with Ryan anymore. I immediately prepared the divorce papers. I'll also cancel the new house contract. If not handled well, I could lose my assets through property division. However, I think I'll be okay if I use Ryan's emotional abuse as leverage. I have both an excellent consulting lawyer and a sincere secretary on my side. After making my decision, I decided to act more cautiously. I avoided confronting Ryan and continued to pretend to be submissive. According to reports from my secretary, Ryan had caused several problems at work. This was just the tip of the iceberg. It seemed that divorcing Ryan wouldn't be enough to sever ties completely. I wanted to resolve the workplace issues quickly and then proceed with the divorce as soon as possible. And I decided to keep it a secret that I am the president of the company. If Ryan or his parents found out before the divorce, it could complicate things. Although it was embarrassing, I told my secretary everything. With her help, I steadily prepared for the divorce. Life with Ryan was suffocating, and I felt like I wasn't truly alive. Once I had a plan in place, I ran into Ryan at work.
Perfect timing,
he said, approaching me with a full smile. He pulled me into an empty meeting room.
You're hiding something from me, aren't you?
Ryan's sneering laugh sent shivers down my spine.
I heard you bought a house. Got a call saying it's ready to move in.
I sighed inwardly. So, that was it.
I'm moving in with my parents today. If you don't like it, we can divorce and you can leave.
I was utterly disgusted. It seemed the time had come to face Ryan directly. He stood defiantly, smirking at me, thinking I would admit defeat and comply with his demands. The days of listening to him for his mother's sake were over. I had thought his parents were good people who cared about me. But after seeing his mother's true nature, I had no intention of confiding in his parents anymore.
Then you're fired and can leave the company.
I smiled at Ryan and confronted him with the truth. Huh? Ryan let out a perplexed noise, but probably thought it was some weird joke. He quickly regained his composure and laughed it off.
Fired? You're not my boss. Have you lost your mind?
I sighed softly and looked at Ryan with cold eyes. Seeing my gaze, Ryan tensed up. Anxiety spread across his face. I took a deep breath and spoke calmly.
The funny thing is you not knowing the face of your company's president.
I showed Ryan the company newsletter featuring an interview with me as the president, with my photo included. Ryan stared at the newsletter as if trying to bore holes through it, then looked back at me.
You? No way, you're lying.
His face drained of color as he muttered to himself.
Got it now?
Ryan seemed to collapse on the spot as if all the strength had left his body.
No, it's not like that, Kelly. I didn't know anything.
He pleaded, trembling, and his voice shaking pathetically.
Didn't know? No, you just didn't bother to find out.
He could have known at any time if he wanted. The company newsletter was available in the break room and cafeteria, and a simple search on his smartphone or PC would bring up my photo. Even if the company website was deleted, my photo could still be found online. Simply put, Ryan wasn't interested. He lacked passion for his work, thus being relegated to menial tasks within the company. To him, the only important things at work were income, time off, and benefits. I was just another unimportant thing to him. But I needed more.
We're not done here. We haven't finished talking about the divorce.
Ryan visibly panicked.
Do you even understand what you're saying?
He never thought I would agree to a divorce.
Yes, I can't become the ideal lady you want me to be. So, divorce is the only option.
I pulled out the divorce papers from my bag. I had kept the divorce papers with me ever since I decided to divorce.
Do you realize what you're doing?
Ryan looked incredulously between the divorce papers and me. I took out a pen and placed it on the table.
Sign it quickly.
Ryan was frozen, his face drained of color.
Oh, not divorcing? Was it all talk?
Snapping back to reality, Ryan slammed the divorce papers on the table and signed them hastily.
Now we are strangers to each other,
I stated matter-of-factly.
Don't come to regret it. Talking back to your husband is a failure as a wife,
Ryan said mockingly.
Good riddance. A woman who chooses her job over mommy and daddy, glad to be rid of you,
he added, sounding like he was making excuses.
Oh, my apologies,
I replied calmly, not minding his comments.
What are you going to do after divorcing? You know how sad my parents will be without you? Do you understand how lonely they'll feel?
How ridiculous. They talked behind my back together. I was so angry that I couldn't find the words. I wanted to lash out at Ryan right there, but all I could do was clench my teeth and glare at him. Taking advantage of my silence, Ryan continued to berate me.
Poor mommy and daddy, they said they're hungry and there's nothing to eat.
So what? There are stores and supermarkets near their house.
Go back to your parents. You can still make amends.
Ryan arrogantly ordered me around. His parents aren't so immobile that they require care. It's just laziness. Enough is enough.
We are strangers now, and I have an important meeting to attend today,
I managed to say. Anger brought me to a state of calm clarity.
If it's so important, you should take a leave and go yourself.
I refused to sacrifice my important company for the likes of them. I've been patient and obedient enough. Ryan, not expecting me to talk back, stepped back.
You're talking back to me? For a wife, that's out of line.
I've said it multiple times, but I'm not his wife anymore. Plus, Ryan's values are skewed. He must think a wife is a slave to her husband, silently obeying. And he only imposes things that are convenient for him.
What do you mean a wife's place? Who do you think you are?
I confronted Ryan without holding back. He gritted his teeth in frustration.
They're your parents. Why don't you take care of them yourself before pushing it onto someone else?
If they're so important, Ryan can take a leave and visit his mother himself. His job was just organizing the storeroom, with no deadlines or external appointments. He could easily take a day off if he talked to his boss, but he pushes it onto me. His mother's condition can't be that bad. It's just a desire to use me as they please. Ridiculous.
Why should I have to take a leave for them?
He's so selfish, even about his own parents. Ryan's illogical reasoning seems endless.
Listen well. Taking care of mommy and daddy is your job.
I'm tired of hearing mommy and daddy. What do you expect from me? I don't expect a sensible answer, but I asked Ryan anyway. Ryan scoffed and replied,
You're supposed to take care of everything for mommy and daddy.
I couldn't believe how absurd Ryan was being. How shameless can he get?
I'm a stranger now. Take a leave and go yourself.
I stated plainly. Ryan choked up, unable to respond. The care of his mother shouldn't be pushed onto me. He should take a leave and handle it himself. To do nothing and complain only to me is outrageous.
You would have been satisfied with anyone who would take care of your parents, wouldn't you?
Ryan opened and closed his mouth, shaking his head. His face was pale.
That's not true. If I had known Kelly was the president, I wouldn't have made her take care of them.
Despite saying know your place as a wife earlier, Ryan quickly changed his tune. Deep down, I knew he wanted to exploit me to his advantage. And this was his way of flattering me. However, Ryan gave himself away with his next comment.
With enough money, you can hire someone.
There it was, the crux of the matter. Ryan always relied on others.
So, caregiving is someone else's responsibility, huh? Are you planning to just play around with mommy while doing nothing? That's not it.
Ryan said with a forced smile, suggesting maybe a different future could have been possible if they had manipulated me better. The thought alone was horrifying. What if I hadn't known the true nature of Ryan's parents? I might have happily agreed to his proposals. There could have been a possibility where Ryan focused on caregiving, and I was the breadwinner. Ryan had squandered that chance himself. It might have been a stroke of luck for me. Ryan looked up at me with tearful eyes, pleading.
Please, let's start over. We were good together, weren't we? Let's go places again.
I remembered the various places Ryan took me on dates before we got married.
The places you took me were fun.
I acknowledged, and Ryan's face lit up. Perhaps thinking there was a chance.
I was foolish to be deceived. It's been hell since we got married.
I glanced at my watch, indicating I was in a hurry.
Well, I have a meeting to prepare for. I'll contact you about the dismissal.
Waving lightly at Ryan, I reached for the door to leave. Before I could open it, Ryan grabbed my left hand. Turning around, I found Ryan glaring at me.
We're not done here. Getting fired and divorced, do you think I'll just accept that?
Ryan confronted me with tearful eyes.
And what's this about being the president?
His words trailed off, and eventually, he let go of my hand. The divorce was Ryan's idea in the first place. And it was their fault I couldn't reveal I was the president. Ryan probably never expected me to accept the divorce. He thought threatening me with divorce would make me obey him. And my being the president must have been a shock. Not something an adult should do. Ryan clenched his jaw. Likely regretting the money he had lost, but that was not my concern.
It just shows how foolish you were,
I said, and Ryan exploded in a reversed voice.
Coward! Is it right for a big company's president to fire an employee just because of a divorce? That's tyranny.
Whether he had lost his reason or was just being defiant, Ryan puffed out his chest. His thinking was too childish. Unable to accept what I said, he was just throwing a tantrum. Too tired to deal with Ryan, I covered my face with my hands. And Ryan grinned, thinking he had hit the mark.
Right on target, huh? Should I make a scene? You'd be the one in trouble.
I was exhausted. Though I thought about keeping silent, I pulled out a piece of paper from my bag. Reading the names written on it.
Ms. Smith from General Affairs, Ms. West and Ms. Brown from Sales, and Ms. Ortega from Accounting.
I then looked at Ryan, who was sweating.
There are more names, you know.
Ryan stepped back towards the wall, trying to distance himself.
The names I just mentioned are of women you've been persistently hitting on.
This issue was reported to me by my secretary. Complaints had come into HR, and my secretary informed me. The only person in the company who knew Ryan and I were married was my secretary. When I heard it from her, I couldn't believe it. That my husband was hitting on several female employees. And quite persistently, it seemed. I was so embarrassed by this revelation that I felt like my face was on fire.
I was just trying to foster better relations among staff.
Ryan made a pathetic excuse. As if such a lame excuse would work.
Inviting them to a hotel, what kind of relations were those?
Ryan was left mumbling, unable to form words. I had messages sent to my smartphone from the women as evidence. The content was embarrassingly cringeworthy. Ryan had no way out. He needed to face the consequences.
Removing a troublemaker from the company is part of a president's job,
I told him firmly. Ryan slumped, defeated. To further corner him, I pulled out an envelope from my bag.
This is from accounting. It seems you've tampered with some receipts.
Ryan reluctantly took the envelope, avoiding my gaze, and fell silent. A mama's boy who leaves everything to others, a womanizer, and on top of that, stingy. Ryan has been a nuisance not just to me, but to many others. It's a fact that he's the worst kind of person, yet I had believed in him. I'm disappointed in myself for not seeing his true colors.
Anyway, you're fired. You will be held accountable.
I turned on my heel and opened the door to the meeting room. As expected, Ryan didn't try to stop me. He was slumped against the wall, powerless.
Well then. Enjoy your time with your parents at your family home.
Ryan collapsed on the spot, mumbling something, but I left him behind and exited the room. After a while, my secretary brought me an official report. Following the report, Ryan was immediately dismissed for disciplinary reasons. I issued an apology to the female employees affected. In the name of the president, ensuring their mental well-being is not neglected, monitored through my secretary. Regular reports on Ryan's behavior also come through the secretary from a private investigator. According to the reports, Ryan, now jobless, returned to live with his parents. He tried to start working again as a freelancer, but then something unexpected happened. His father was diagnosed as needing care. And shortly after, his mother developed dementia. Ryan ended up caring for both his father and mother. His mother sometimes wanders at night, leading to sleepless nights for Ryan. Working during the day and caring for his parents afterward, he said he didn't have enough bodies to cope.
I need help. Please provide some financial assistance.
Ryan contacted me several times. If the divorce had been amicable, I might have helped. However, Ryan and his family treated me like a slave. There's no room for sympathy for such people. Each time, I responded to Ryan with a professional tone.
I am unable to assist you. Please refrain from further contact. Should it continue, appropriate actions will be taken.
After that, Ryan stopped contacting me. Deciding that I had enough of marriage after divorcing Ryan, I chose to live on my own. I kept the new house I had contracted and rented it out. It's on land likely to appreciate in value, so there shouldn't be any loss. Work is going well, and the company's performance is on the rise. Work has become my purpose in life, and I'm more devoted to it than ever. However, I can't quit bowling, which Ryan introduced me to. I still participate in tournaments and have joined a bowling community circle. Most members are older than me, providing a wealth of life experience to learn from. Recently, a man close to my age joined the group. Unlike Ryan, he's gentle, unassuming, and reserved. Yet, when he gets a strike, his joyous expression is so charming, I find myself secretly thrilled. For now, I keep telling myself that my job is my life. Someday, happiness will come my way, too. With that hope, I continue to dedicate myself to work every day.